What are the things that are most likely to prevent you from succeeding as a freelance writer? In today's episode, I'm going to break down the 5 things that I most commonly see derail freelance writers, and we're going to be explaining how to prevent those things from derailing you on your journey. Today's episode is sponsored by Copy AI, a toolkit that helps writers, marketers, and freelancers skip writer's block and quickly create first draft copy for themselves and their clients. If you'd like to get a free 30-day trial, head on over to copy.ai/Jacob. Freelance writing is an incredibly accessible career. And every single week I get testimonials and reports from other freelance writers who have hit significant milestones in their journeys and are building successful careers, successful businesses. But that said, not everyone is succeeding in this space. Accessibility means that a lot of people come into this space and try their hand at freelance writing who ultimately won't end up succeeding. And over the years, I've observed that 5 particular things seem to derail freelance writers more than almost anything else. The first one is, to be honest, a little bit surprising. So many freelance writers come into this field with the assumption that they can't do something. Sometimes it's as broad as, I can't succeed as a freelance writer, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But more frequently, it's specific things. They look at people who they consider successful, and they see things that those writers are doing, and they think, oh, I couldn't do that. They notice that a writer has a byline on Forbes, or that, so-and-so is working with a Fortune 500 client. And they think, oh man, I couldn't do that. And the ironic thing about this is that there's really no pre-qualifications for doing almost anything in the online space. If you want to do something, achieve something, accomplish something in the writing space, the biggest differentiator between people who have done it and people who haven't is just whether or not they've tried it. When you see someone who has a byline on a big publication, 9 times out of 10, it's just because they happen to send a good pitch at the right time. And if you were to send a good pitch at the right time, right now, with your current skill set, you could get that same byline. Now that said, maybe you give it a try, maybe you send the pitch, and it turns out you just don't actually have the writing chops yet to get published on a particular publication. That's great news. That gives you a specific target to aim for in increasing your mastery and hitting a goal that previously was just this vague, oh, I can't do this. And now it's I need to develop this specific skill set and I can do it. And that's ultimately what building any career is all about, is figuring out what are those specific things that you need to do and master in order to move up the ladder or move forward in terms of growing your revenue or just, hitting that next stage in your business journey. So the takeaway here is never assume you can't do something. Approach everything with the mentality that you're going to try it first. Don't start with asking questions. Don't start with trying to find a mentor to help you do it. Just try it. See what happens. Go through the experience yourself of making an attempt. In some cases, you'll hit it right off the bat and you'll be shocked that you could have been doing that the whole time. Never assume you can't do something. Always try it first and then go from there. So the next big thing that tends to derail freelancers is that they just refuse to sell. This is pretty understandable. If you're coming from an employment background, you probably didn't have to sell every single day. Your job probably had a pretty specific hierarchy where you just informed the person below you of what they needed to do and the person above you did the same and everyone did what they were told. Or maybe the skill set you had wasn't even interacting with people. There was no persuasion required. It was just straightforward doing the work. And now as a freelancer, everything you do is sales. You have to sell yourself in order to get work. Once you get the work, you have to sell your ideas to the client. And then once you're actually doing the writing, you're often selling an idea on behalf of the client to their target audience. Everything is sales, and if you want to be successful as a freelance writer, you have to embrace that. You can only fight it for so long before it's going to derail your career. And even if you do manage to extend your career by several years without really embracing sales, you're going to be making a lot less money than your colleagues and associates who have embraced the fact that being a freelancer is all about selling yourself, your ideas, your copy. It's all sales, so embrace it and succeed. This brings us to number 3. The next big challenge that tends to derail freelance writing careers is, in my opinion, the most tragic one. And that's that so many freelance writers just try to do too much. Freelance writers have a wide array of sources and influences telling them how to run their business. And the result of this is often that they're trying too many things, and they're trying things that aren't even the right fit for their stage of business. Some of this just comes from the personal ignorance that a lot of people bring into freelancing and entrepreneurship, where they think that stuff like, getting a professional logo designed or setting up a really great website or starting an LLC or any of these things is going to make a big difference on them succeeding in business. Some of it is also coming from trainers and coaches like myself who all have a different philosophy on what you need to be doing to grow your business. So a lot of people will say stuff like, hey, you absolutely have to isolate a specific niche right off the bat, or you need to create a blog or use content marketing or SEO or whatever it is. And while everything I just mentioned can potentially benefit you in a big way at some point in your business, the reality is that if you're just getting started or you're within your first few years, it's probably not the priority. The truth is there's really only two things that are going to move the needle for your business within the first few years. And those two things make up our final 2 points. Number 4, the next big thing that derails people's freelance writing careers is simply that they aren't writing enough. For people who have been reading and writing their entire lives for fun, this doesn't really apply. The last one that we'll mention is going to apply to you. But for a lot of other people, they come into freelance writing without reading blogs, without reading books, without writing as a personal habit. They just see it as an accessible career and expect that they're just going to become good copywriters overnight. Copywriting is a simple form of writing, but it's not an easy form of writing. And if you aren't coming in with a relatively strong writing baseline, a base writing skill set, you're going to have to do quite a bit of work to actually become a good copywriter. Even talented writers usually take a good 6 months before they're writing copy that is actually passable, is actually strong. And it really blows my mind how many writers come into this space expecting to just make a lot of money without actually becoming good writers. The only way to become a better writer is to write a lot of content, to write a lot of copy, to do a lot of writing, period. So if you've done a lot of writing in your background, great, you probably can just focus on specific projects. But if you're coming in without a long history of writing, you need to be writing every single week. Even if you haven't landed any clients yet, you should be pre-writing blog posts or pieces of copy as practice or as potential pre-made assets to shop around and sell. I don't care, even if it's just journaling, you need to be writing every single week. That's something that I probably haven't emphasized enough in the past because I think for me it always just went without saying, but I've noticed more and more that it needs to be said. If you aren't writing every week, you're going to struggle to succeed as a freelance writer. And this brings us to number 5, which is both the second thing that's going to move the needle on your business and the final entry in our list of things that tend to derail freelance writing careers. And that's simply not getting your brand in front of enough people. While I typically emphasize pitching here, networking can and should play just as big a role in how you get your brand out there. You need to be constantly meeting new people in your space, in your industry, in any niches that you've chosen, other writers, editors, business owners. The more people you can meet, the more people you can connect with, the further your brand's going to go. And when you're connecting with people, when you're meeting people, when you're talking to people you already know, you need to be letting them know that you do writing. You need to be letting them know that you have a skill set. You don't have to sell them on it, but you need to be letting them know that you have it, because that's going to give them the opportunity to engage further with you around that context, to hire you directly, to refer you to someone else that they meet who potentially needs your services. For a lot of freelance writers, including myself, our first ever gig came from simply talking with a friend and mentioning that we did writing, and then suddenly discovering there was a fit there and they needed something we could do, and boom, first project in the books, payment in the books, and potential setup for more referrals down the road. In my case, it was only a 50 or $100 gig, something like that. I don't even remember the exact number, but it can be a lot bigger than that. I have a lot of students who land 4-figure projects just talking with people in their warm network. I even had one student who landed a $14,000 gig just reaching out to people they knew and letting them know, hey, I'm doing freelance writing. So regardless of how you reach out, pitch, network, whatever, you need to just constantly be getting your brand in front of other people, in front of other brands, in front of other business owners, in front of other employees, people. It doesn't matter. The more people who know about what you're doing, know about your service, your brand, the more people are going to hire you. It's as simple as that. So to quickly recap, number one, never assume you can't do something. Always try it first and then go from there. Number two, you absolutely have to embrace sales, whether it's selling your services, selling your ideas, writing copy that sells. If you're a freelance writer, you are in the sales game and you have to embrace that. Number three, don't try to do too many things at once. There's only two things that are going to move the needle for your business, and that is number 4 and number 5, write more, pitch and network more. That's simple. Hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you in the next episode.